Hey, it's Hugh Culver. In this video, I want to talk about why you get stuck. I find that when I write about things that I experience, there's a lot of other people experiencing the same thing. And one thing I just recently wrote about was how I get stuck, but also how I get unstuck so that I can get on with what's really important. And what I mean by stuck is, you're frozen, right? You're thinking about all these things you want to get done. You've got this huge to-do list. You're running out of time, but you're not actually moving forward. And now you become even more frustrated. Dr. Martin Seligman, sort of the father of modern psychology, in his book Learned Optimism, he talks about how we can get stuck. He called it learned helplessness. And he says there's three things that happen. First of all, we think the problem is everywhere. Oh my goodness, I don't have enough time. Oh my goodness, everybody is stuck. Or oh my goodness, look how long my list is. So the problem is pervasive. He says that we also think the problem is permanent. This is not going away. It's not getting better. I don't seem to be improving. I keep running into this same trap. We also think the problem is personal. It's my fault. So it's pervasive, permanent, and personal, which makes it even worse. We get into what's known as a cognitive loop where we start thinking like it's only going to get worse, and we start to see only evidence that proves that we have a problem. Not good at all. So I want to share with you 5 simple ways to get unstuck. So if you're the kind of high achiever that realizes that you're not always on your game, or you're the kind of person that finds that life takes over and you get frustrated, this is really going to help you. So number 1 is you got to take care of the basics. So what I mean by that is you got to take care of the things that give you energy. Recently I was up in the Canadian Rockies with my youngest daughter for a week, and we were snowshoeing with a group from her class. And on this one day, our last full day up in this camp, we went on a very long snowshoe trail. It was really exciting. It was a big loop, and I had all these young people with me, and they were doing great. And when we returned home, they were all full of excitement, and they'd made the loop, and that we'd followed the map, and we were successful. But I also recognized that we were tired, we were cold, we were wet, and it was also getting dark. That's not the time to hang around and share stories. That's the time to take care of the basics. We need to warm ourselves up and change our clothes. We need to start consuming some nice warm fluids, and we need to be preparing for the evening. It's the same thing with you at work. Are you taking care of the basics? You got to remember that your body is a system, and that small things make a big difference. The research by Roy Baumeister from University of Florida, who's a real expert on willpower, discovered that something as simple as a small sip of fruit juice can change dramatically the kind of decisions that people make. They have more willpower. They make better decisions. They're less likely to take shortcuts. So the basics would be, have you had something to eat recently? Are you eating things that are low glycemic so they release slowly into your blood system? Are you eating things that you can eat in small amounts to give you energy, like little bits of nuts and dried fruit? So that's the basics. But also, are you taking breaks? Number 2 is to ask better questions. When you get into that cognitive loop where everything looks kind of stuck and everything looks kind of negative and impossible, it's not going to help you to ask, why is this always happening? That's a bad question. A better question would be to ask, well, what could I do in only 20 minutes that would make a big difference? Or what is it that I can learn from what's going on right now? Like, why does this continually happen to me? What am I doing in terms of my planning that is making this difficult for me to achieve? Like, what am I doing in terms of the way I describe what I have to work on? If I'm looking at a list of activities or a list of tasks, and one of them is research website, or one of them is increase my sales, I'm not going to do it because I've described it poorly. So you have to ask better questions. What's going on here? What could I do in just a short amount of time? But also, why does this keep reoccurring? What is it that I'm doing wrong in terms of my planning? So first is take care of the basics. The second one is to ask better questions. The third one is to shake your booty. And what I mean by that is you got to get out there and move. Physical movement is a trigger for us. Physical movement brings our energy up. It's kind of an anchor. It's no different than, you take those first steps on the nice, warm, sandy beach and suddenly you have the completely different feeling. Well, if you look at a picture of a sandy beach, you might actually have that same feeling again. That's called an anchor. And you can do the same thing at work. So what would be an anchor that's going to make you feel better? So for example, standing up and moving might automatically make you feel better. Changing your focus and looking at something, like reading something that you really enjoy for a few minutes and then returning back to your work might be a really good anchor for you. Or simply turning away from all that clutter and all the stuff that you're working on and just simply changing your scenery for a few minutes might actually make you feel better. So you need to move your body, you need to get the blood flowing, you need to also change to something that's going to make you feel more optimistic and more positive. So that's shake your booty. Number 4 is to ooch forward, O-O-C-H forward, ooch forward. This is an expression from the Heath brothers who, in their latest book, Decisive, talk about the value of making small little incremental achievements, like moving things forward just even a little bit at a time. Recently I launched a big program called Boss 15, the Business of Speaking School. It's overwhelming. There's so many details. It reminded me of writing my first book. And the only way that I was able to launch that program was by ooching forward. Just like doing one little thing for 15 minutes or one little thing for 20 minutes. And even though it wasn't a lot, it actually moved things forward. So the idea of ooching forward is just to do something that gets you traction. If you haven't exercised for years, go for a 10-minute walk. If you're frustrated because you keep procrastinating about some writing project, just write for 20 minutes or do an outline. But do something that moves you forward. And the last strategy is to notice tiny wins. And this idea comes from B.J. Fogg. And in his work, he actually recommends that what people do is they look for little successes and then they actually notice them. They notice those tiny wins. Whether it's something small that you just, is insignificant on the surface, it helps you to get momentum. I remember when my daughters were young, one of the things I did was taught them how to deposit money into a bank account. So they had their own bank accounts that we created for them. But I also taught them every time they made a deposit to look at that little folded bank book, that they give you. So, it's a very simple little book. You unfold it and it shows you all the little transactions, the little deposits, right? And I notice now to this day when they go and make deposits, they still look at that little bank book. They look at that little slip that the ATM prints out or that the teller gives them. They've learned that they need to recognize those small wins because I spent so much time congratulating them and getting them to congratulate themselves on those little tiny deposits, whether it was like, $10 from their grandmother for their birthday. But that trained them to recognize that little wins lead to big wins. So there you have it. If you're feeling stuck or you have a pattern of getting stuck, 5 ways to get unstuck. So first of all, take care of the basics. Are you taking care of yourself? Are you taking care of your nutrition, your sleep? Are you taking breaks? Number 2 is to ask better questions. So what can I learn here? What can I do in 20 minutes? What is a different way that I can approach this? Number 3 is to shake your booty. What I mean by that is to get your energy up, move around, get new anchors. Number 4 is to ooch forward. And number 5 is to notice tiny wins. There you go. It works for me, and I hope it can work for you as well. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk again soon.